Back here on Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers, Jeff Lloyd of Locked On Browns. Jeff, Myles Garrett was the story of the game last time. Well, a story of the game. There were several stories, but he had 3 sacks in the last game. And the Steelers in the second half appeared to have adjusted to at least minimize him in the second half, but the damage was done in the first with what he was able to do there. The Steelers, though, this past week, took on Trey Hendrickson, the leading sack man in the NFL, and they were able to pretty much stonewall him. Talk about how the Browns move around Myles Garrett to force you because that's something the Steelers are only really tapping into the surface of TJ Watt, but that seems like it's been a staple of Myles Garrett's game for years now.
It was early in his career. And then there were times where it wasn't, but I think this was something that started last year, and Jim Schwartz was just like, and granted in mind at the time you had Zadarius Smith, had Okoronkwo. So you had capable players where you can say, well, I'm going to take the 320-pound defensive lineman off the field and, I'll use my, absolute, chess piece like a queen. You just try to, it's again, like you talked about earlier, because you're just trying to play mind games. You know what I'm saying? You get so accustomed, and when teams play TJ Watt, you get so accustomed to looking over at the right tackle, looking at the situation. Is somebody going to be there to help my right tackle? But now you got to get all your calls off. You got to look at the secondary. You got to identify coverage. And then meanwhile, it's like, well, wait a minute. 90's not standing where 90 is normally standing. And there was that highlight week 1 of 2023 where Myles was standing above the center from the Cincinnati Bengals, pretending to do the crossover dribble. And you literally, the guard's tapping him to snap the ball. But it was also kind of like, yeah, I don't know what's about to happen here, but good luck, bro. And the thing is, it was always a thing you do in football when things, guys are young. You take a guy, let him do something else. Why? You want to keep him more engaged. You want to keep more excited. When you start telling players, well, look, this should be a better advantage for you. This should be, and you keep the guys, the juices flowing, the excitement to it. So it's certainly been a part of it. They're lacking a little bit right now. Zadarius Smith being moved on was the right move, but it certainly, didn't help this team. But you are looking at a player like Elijah McGuire that you're trying to get a developmental path on. Okoronkwo is a good player, but he's a role pass rusher. They brought in 2 pass rushers late last week in James Houston and Cameron Thomas, both 24 years old, both picks in the 2022 draft. They're trying to get eyes on them. But you just take your best player. And look, if it leads to a timeout, if it leads to a false start, if it doesn't even lead to a sack or a pressure, it had some form of impact. And look, defense coordinators, what do they love to do? Mess with offensive coordinators. Offensive coordinators, what do they want to do? They want to confuse defensive coordinators. It's just the way football should be played.
It is. And I think that's what both sides are going to try to do in this way.
And especially when you're talking about teams that know each other this well and have just faced each other within the last 14, 15 days.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the whole thing here is that these teams, they know that he sort of like one thing I thought was really cool about the first episode of Hard Knocks that came out. You got to be in all the team meeting rooms, and when the Steelers are preparing for the Bengals, you see them talking about Mike Hilton saying they're going to throw to George Pickens, they're going to throw a bad pass to him, and they're going to throw it to him again. And the Steelers are like, we got to do this to Joe Burrow. They're doing that about each other every single week because whereas they do that about other teams. It's different when you know a team because you play them all the time and you have to study them all year long, every year to kind of prepare for them. So that's where I think it's going to get really interesting on both sides is that the Browns are going to move around Myles Garrett. The Steelers started to move around TJ Watt. As I've been talking about all year long, I think it's something that's been very important for the Steelers to do to free him up as teams are sending triple teams. They're doing everything to his side. So move him around even just a little bit. It worked against the Giants. They didn't do it after that once Alex Highsmith got hurt. Then this past week they brought it back, and all of a sudden he has a multi-sack game. That has to be a factor in this game, I think, again, because Kevin Stefanski is too smart of an offensive-minded head coach to allow the Steelers just to put him on one side and that just be it. But to your point, Highsmith being back, he's also been a game wrecker for the Steelers. We'll see where that plays out. We talked about a lot about these defensive fronts. Where's somewhere else that you're looking right now, Jeff, that's a key matchup for the Browns in this game?
Well, Ross Jackson, we love you, so we'll make sure we get our 3 in here, right? You got to clean it up. You can't be throwing 3 interceptions. Look, you throw the ball almost 60 times. You understand there's going to be some mistakes, but 3 interceptions per game is completely unsustainable in this league. So turnovers is a huge one. Now, the Browns, they've been taking a couple of punches and punching back. Well, Pittsburgh is probably going to be looking to punch back here. You know what I'm saying? They went into that Thursday night game, certainly did not want to lose, certainly did not want to take that L. So you got to be ready to go fight. The Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Browns Steelers games are usually pretty obvious. They're usually pretty tight in Cleveland, and they usually don't go very well in Pittsburgh. That is usually the way that this rivalry has gone for, even as the Browns have started to come back. Mm-hmm. The other thing is I need some. If I just get 1 week, can I get some semblance of a run game? Look, Nick Chubb is out there. You can see he's not Nick Chubb. Eventually, hopefully, he returns to, Nick Chubb. He's good enough to be out there. He's not Nick Chubb. Jerome Ford looks better. How do you tell Nick Chubb you're going to give Jerome Ford? But you got to get some semblance. A, it's going to shorten the game. B, it's going to prevent Jameis Winston from having the ball, throw the ball 60 times. It's going to rest your defense. You've got to find some way to be able to, matriculate 4 yards per carry or more. I mean, and look, I understand, but you got to be able to commit 20 carries, if not more, because you're having some success. They really need this because, look, with Jameis, the more he throws it, the greater the opportunity and greater their percentage is going to be for some mistakes. So you got to do everything to kind of manufacture the way your team currently sits. And one thing that would truly help this team in all facets is if they could find some success in the running game.
I think that's the big thing. And that's the Steelers try to take away every week. It's about stuffing the run. It's about stuffing the run. And Mike Tomlin prioritized that. Heck, last week against Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, one thing you saw in Hard Knocks, he was talking about, we got to stop Chase Brown. We can't let that guy get going. And that's going to be the emphasis every single week for the Steelers. And look, even though Nick Chubb, I think, averaged less than 3 yards per carry, what did he do in that game, Jeff? He got 2 red zone touchdowns for the Steelers for the Browns in that short distance. That was a difference maker. Jameis Winston, though he played well, he didn't throw a single touchdown. And when he just got them into the red zone and Nick Chubb pushed the way in, that's what the Steelers have to avoid letting happen in this one, is making sure that they don't allow the Nick Chubb, Jerome Ford, even in short distance, key money down situations. What were the Browns? 5 of 5 on 4th downs in that game. They cannot allow those to happen, even if they are 4th and 2s and 4th and 1s. You got to be able to win those spots. Cam Hayward needs to be a difference maker. Watt needs to be a difference maker. Everyone, Patrick Queen, they all need to pitch in. And this is going to be, I think, another big game between these two teams. We won't give you our predictions because that's coming on our Friday episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Jeff, thanks so much for joining me here on Crossover Thursdays. Let people know I can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Well, and actually, just one last thing to your 4th down thing. Remember, Justin Fields, Mohurst blew up the pulling guard. Justin Fields didn't know what to do, so he took the ball to the right side on a 4th and yards, and it was big momentum thing at the time. Look, we appreciate you all. You guys, look, again, Locked On doesn't exist without the people who listen to it. So of course, Locked On Browns, YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts. We're slowing, as far as putting stuff out on the socials. It's always a weird time, through the countries or whatever, and maybe sports is not everybody's top priority right now, but everybody who's here for us, again, it's it's that time of the year where you start to give thanks and you start to realize what helps you get through your world and your day, and you guys are certainly that for all of us here at the Locked On Podcast Network. It's Browns, it's Steelers. Records get thrown out the window. As a kid, when you played in high school, your coach told you, I don't care if we only win 1 game this year. We do not lose to our rivals. Well, the point is you do not want to lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers or to the Cleveland Browns. We'll see how it goes on Sunday.